What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Happy Tampa Tuesday. And all I got to say is return to sender. Hit delete. You saw the thumbnail, y'all. You know what we're talking about. So thanks for joining us tonight. I'm happy to be able to do this. I got to be honest, because we were not sure how today was going to go, of course, with Hurricane Idalia being out in the Gulf of Mexico right now. And there's been a lot of preparation to get to this point, but here we are. So we're excited to be with y'all. I am joined by my lovely co-host. I've got Miss Marsha Railton down in Bradenton, Florida. Good evening, Marsha.
Good evening. Happy awesome. We can be here as well.
Absolutely. And without all the fuss and ruckus. So I'm excited for that. And then we've got Miss Stacy Amon, who's up to the north, up in Dade City. Good evening, Stacy.
Good evening, everyone.
And you'll have to forgive me. I'm a little bit frazzled. I literally went down to the beach right before we jumped on here because I wanted to check in. People have been asking us to check in all day, give us updates. We're grateful for all of our audience here. So thank you. We'd love to know where you're watching from first and foremost. If you're following the channel, we appreciate you. And I know you guys probably have some serious interest on what this looks like. And the irony of today was Marsha actually had some prep for hurricane on the agenda for us this week before we really had any insights that this was going to be a real topic today. So, but here we are, and we're going to have to pivot this weekend for our normal video for those of you who follow the channel as well. I had a wonderful beach video planned in Clearwater, and that has all been washed away, so to speak. So you're going to get some hurricane footage all week. I'm going to share some stuff with y'all today too. It's going to be from my social channel, so bear with me. This isn't going to be as polished as it normally is, but I think it's important for us to share in real time, in real life, what it feels like and what you go through when you're living here. So I'm excited to share this with you. And for those of you who are new to the channel, my name is Juan Alcala. I'm a licensed real estate agent, and we make videos that are all things Tampa Bay. So we're glad to have you here. If you're following us on YouTube and you're not a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button. It really lets us get out to more people. Also, smash that like button if you don't mind. But most importantly, I would love to make this evening engaging. Okay, so while we do come with a plan and we have topics for you tonight, we really want to answer your questions, because what we know is there are so many of you that are watching from all over the country. We literally had a Zoom call with a potential client who is considering relocating from Seattle yesterday. And she was like, I'm coming unless they cancel my flight. We're like, okay, and so she's scheduled to be in on Thursday morning. And I love that. I think it's so awesome that someone, when you make up your mind, you make a decision, you make things happen. And, we've been able to share. And last year I shared my experience after Ian, which was an entirely different experience. That we set up for 4 days thinking that was going to be our hurricane. And as you guys may or may not know, it took a very hard right and hit about 2.5 hours south of us and really messed up Cape Coral, Fort Myers Beach pretty bad. And it was difficult for me, not being from Florida and living through this my entire life. We've been here for 4 years, this is going on our 5th year, but that was our first real encounter. We've had a couple, grazings, so to speak, but that was our first real encounter. And man, it was an emotional experience for me. And, not to make fun of myself, but like last year, I literally, had a breakdown on the live stream we were doing, because I needed to get it out. My family was away, and, seeing the devastation and having friends and family down there in that area and seeing what they were going through, it was just tough. It was like one of those moments you're like, that was supposed to be ours, but you're dealing with it. So it was one of those things. Now we're sharing and we're able to be a little bit jovial tonight, but understand that there is a Category 2 hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico. It is planned to be Category 3 by the time it hits landfall in the Big Bend of Florida. And I'll pull this up on the map and share it with y'all here in a second. And there are people that are going to be in the wake of this, right? There are families and households and things. So just please keep them in your prayers, right? Keep them in your prayers, keep them in your thoughts, whatever it is that you celebrate, right? If you want to sing good juju, whatever it is, you vibrate with the universe, don't care, right? But just know that there are people involved in this, and they are going to have to deal with this. Okay. And yes, it is part of living in Florida. I understand that, but it doesn't change the fact that it doesn't make it any easier. right? So we want to start this, and we're going to try to make tonight as lighthearted as we can. I want to say this first and foremost: I am not a weather person. I don't play one on YouTube. So I'm going to do my best to give you our perspective. The ladies are going to share too, because they've been here longer than I have. They've lived through these things as well. Marcia was closer to the Ian effects last year than we were here in Tampa, and I just think it's a great time to share some of these things. So we're going to share how we prepared, how we got ready, some of the things you can expect. We're going to share our resources, of course, because there are some wonderful resources in the state of Florida. We're not new to this, and when I say we, I mean the state. Okay. State is not new to this. They've got the electric company staged, and these guys are ready to go. And I'll tell you what, right now, man, after a storm, the electric company, they treat those guys like they can walk on water. They clear paths, they make ways, and for good reason, because they do incredible work. So shout out to the linemen and women, those serving in that aspect. We appreciate you, all of our first responders. God bless y'all. Good luck this evening, because it's going to be a bumpy 24 hours for those guys up in the in the Panhandle area. So there's still time for things to change and adjust, but it looks like the Tampa Bay is going to be able to avert another hurricane, which is just incredible. So we'll get into some of that stuff, but I want to say thank you, right? So we've already got people connecting with us here on the chat, so we're going to honor you guys and we want to pull you in. But I just want to say thanks. The amount of messages that I received today on Instagram and Facebook and text messages were absolutely overwhelming. Just, hey, we're praying for you guys. We're praying for Florida, and we just can't thank you enough, right? This is part of our choice. We've decided to live here, right? The exchange of value is lots of sunshine, beautiful weather, Gulf of Mexico, but in return, we get Mother Nature doing what she does when she wants to do it, and that is the exchange that we make. But ladies, I would love to to do some round robin here tonight, have some conversation. Let's say hello to everyone in the audience who's chiming in right now. Monica R says, stay safe. Thank you, Monica. We appreciate you. Derek Weaver's watching from Tampa. Yeah, Tampa, stay safe, y'all. Marcia's in Bradenton, so she's a little bit further to the south. There, she's off the river there, but Marcia, you're in pretty good elevation in your neighborhood. Correct me if I'm wrong, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, we're an AE evacuation or flood zone.
Okay, so they're up a little ways out of the water for those of you that don't know what that means. And Stacy is up in Dade City, so in theory, she's probably the most isolated or insulated from the storm. She's about an hour off the Gulf of Mexico there, and they're at higher ground. There's actually some hills out where Stacy lives, believe it or not. Everybody thinks Florida's flat. That's not true. There's hills in Dade City. I've seen them with my own eyes.
Luckily, I live on top of one.
Nice.
Smart thinking.
Yeah, and while I am close to the coast here, I'm literally 1.93 miles from my door to toes in the sand, and I know this because my wife and I run it all the time. We're that close. We're at like 40 feet of elevation, and I know people are laughing right now. I think my house is 38. People are like, oh wow, you know what I mean? But like in Florida, that's really high up. So if something happens, if the ocean meets my front door, the world has changed dramatically. So just to give you all some perspective. So we're in pretty safe territory. We would face a pretty strong brunt of the wind. I'm not in an evac zone or a flood zone. If you look at the map of Pinellas County, which I'll show you guys here in a minute, I'll kind of show you the sweet spot of where that is, because we actually have some bluffs just down the road from us too that are at higher elevation. So there are places, but there are areas in Tampa Bay that are low-lying areas, right? So Gulfport, St. Pete, those are some of the first to flood. And then Tampa, the dirty little secret most people don't recognize is Tampa's at a very low-lying level, right? Even our hospital, our Trauma 1 is Tampa General, and they've erected some walls around it, some flood walls to try to protect the hospital. So we'll get into some of this stuff tonight, but really appreciate you guys connecting. Ronnie, who's been a follower basically since I went live on this channel, I appreciate it. And we're happy to talk about it, Ronnie. I think it is relevant for sure, because people want to know. They're asking, they're interested. If you've been considering relocating here, you're trying to wrap your mind around what it looks like. So I understand, y'all. Crystal says, watching from Charlotte, North Carolina. Shout out to Charlotte. Bought a house in Ruskins on the water in 2021. Do you have a must-have list for hurricane cleanup items? Yes, the answer to that is yes. And Marsha's got a list for y'all. We're going to get into that and a lot of resources here. Uniski, I want to make sure I'm pronouncing that right. Forgive me if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Ruskin's a very low-lying area. There's definitely a lot of low-lying areas around here, so something to be mindful of. Mojaz says, stay safe, watching from Cleveland. What's up, Cleveland? Glad to see y'all. Apollo Beach as well. Yep. Ronnie said he's going to throw a hurricane party tonight. This is a Florida thing. For those of you that don't know, I just got back down, but I was at the beach. Guys are down there surfing, living their best life, because we don't get to surf in the Gulf of Mexico. That's not normal. All right, so very interesting. Crystal says, yep, my house built in 1967, built flat ground. Absolutely. All right, so let's get into how to be helpful. So the first thing I want to do with y'all, and I'll share some social stuff that we shared with everybody, but like, when was it? Yesterday morning, I walked into Home Depot, and as I walked in, there were 3 generators left. 3. And as I walked up to grab the cart, I was the last man standing in the musical chairs, and I got the generator, and I was like, awesome. So because we didn't have one last year, I left. I didn't care what happened. I was like, whatever. And we don't have a whole home generator system yet, which we are going to invest in the future. This is one of those indicators. But we don't have one yet. We rarely lose power here. And as I say that, we're probably going to lose it. And we've only lost power for about 2 hours ever since we moved in 4 years ago, even as being as close to the coast as we are. So it hasn't been a priority for us in that respect. But we walked into Home Depot. Of course, it was crazy town in there. People grabbing plywood, generators, batteries, anything with the battery basically got bought at that point. Fans, cleaning supplies, and we'll get into some of this stuff as we go along. I also want to point you guys to some resources that we follow locally that will help you better understand what's happening with these storms, because as a Floridian who lives near the coast, you kind of have to learn how to be I won't say an amateur weatherman, but like a wannabe right? Like you got to at least have a head about you to know how you're going to approach the storm, right? I've got a wife and 3 kids, and we have to make decisions about, are we staying? Are we leaving? Are we playing roulette? We've made a kind of a rule in the household that if it's a Cat 3, if it hits Cat 3, we're leaving. That kind of attitude about it, and it's headed our direction. So just to share some insights with y'all on what that could look like. All right, Marcia, let's dig into some of this stuff. I know you just sent me an email. We were having some technical challenges here, y'all, so bear with me. But I want to pull up some of the things that Marcia has set aside for y'all. So, Marcia, where are we headed first?
Well, first, I wanted to say this is my 4th hurricane that I've hopefully lived through. My first one was in Charlotte, North Carolina in 1989. It was Hurricane Hugo, and it was by far the worst hurricane I've lived through. We didn't have power for, I think it was either 10 or 11 days.
That's a long time.
It was a very long time. People were robbing stores and everything else. I was a property manager at the time. I was managing a couple properties, and we had like a constant party going on at the community center because people had brought their food. We had it in coolers, and someone would go out every day and find ice because it was hard to find. So they'd drive around until they found it. And then at night and during the day, the grills were going so we could share each other's food. And it was the most traumatic hurricane I've been through. So that was my first one, and so shocking. I remember Charlotte, North Carolina is like 3.5, 4 hours from the beach. It's nowhere near water, but trees were pulled right out from the ground. There was buildings gone. The National Guard was there for like 2 weeks managing everything. It was awful. The other thing that happened was tons of bugs came out of the ground. So everybody had roaches and fleas in their house. It was horrible, just horrible. I slept on my kitchen table one night because there was so many fleas on the carpeting. It was like living in a war zone. It was horrible. So that was the worst one. And then Irma down here, I lived through that one in 2017. That was the second worst one. And they just seem to keep getting a little bit easier for me. But I've stayed, my husband and I have stayed through all of them. So the scary thing in Florida, when you hear about a hurricane, is like Juan was saying, what are we going to do? Because you have to make a decision early on whether you're going to leave or you're going to stay. And once you make that decision, you got to stick with it. You can't, like, once the storm starts, it isn't time for you to get in the car and leave. And leaving Florida, most people go up I-75. I thought it was really smart this time that the governor and all the safety people are saying, go 10 miles. Don't go to Georgia and Tennessee. And, people go too far, and then things like running out of gas or sitting in traffic becomes more of a problem than if you would have just stayed at home. So that's something you have to consider. If you do stay at home, then you have to have food, water, gas. You have to think of things ahead of time, which we'll talk about. And whether you leave home or not, you have to have your home prepared. So that's the first thing Floridians do. A few days before the hurricane gets here, people start deciding if they're going to put up their shutters. Some people have windows that they don't have to put up shutters. Some people, we have a listing that have accordion shutters, which is awesome because they stay hooked onto the wall next to your windows. And all you do is pull them and they hook in. So it's a very simple way to prepare, as opposed to what we have, which came with our home and comes with most new construction homes here, is I think they're aluminum shutters. They're very heavy, but they do the trick. And when you open the box, you get a box that has all the bolts and everything with it. And it has like the floor plan or layout of where each one of these go. So they'd be marked like A, B, C, D, and that's how you know where they go on your home. So it's a process. I think it's pretty cool here that people help each other. I live in a large neighborhood, and so usually, everybody starts putting them up and helping each other put them up. I'll have to say that this time a lot of people chose not to. I'd say only a quarter of the people here did put up their hurricanes, mainly because the threat in our area is more the surge from the river than it is wind. Those are all decisions that you have to make, you and your family.
That's a great point, Marcia. And again, y'all, like, thank you for hanging out with us tonight. And, again, we're trying to keep this dynamic, and we didn't really know how we were going to approach today because we just didn't know what the current situation is going to be. But Marcia's giving you some real good examples, right? Like, there's so many different things you have to deal with. And this is why, like, I remember when I was living in Michigan, and you'd hear about these storms and I'd be like, those people are nuts. Like, what are they doing down there, right? And then you live here, and it is different, right? Because you do understand that things can change. And also, there are inherent risks with living close to the coast. And if you live inland, there's, not as much, but there's still areas that flood. When I went to Orlando last year during Ian, I went to Orlando to get away from the coast because it was supposed to hit Tampa, right? Like Marcia said, and I want to make this point here, Marcia, because you brought it up. My wife, I shared this story, but I was super sick. I think I had COVID. I lost an entire day. I literally slept 18 hours, and I woke up on Monday morning, and I was like, I lost a day. And I went to work, and on Tuesday, we had to make a decision. Were we staying or were we leaving? And at that point, it was still directly headed for Tampa. Everybody said it was headed for Tampa. Jim Cantori was standing in Clearwater, Florida. Right. And I bring that up because if you guys don't know who Jim Cantori is, in Florida, they don't play Where's Waldo, right? We don't play Where's Waldo in Florida. We play Where is Jim Cantori? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep, where the action is.
That's right. And for those of you who don't know who Jim Cantori is, you must be living under a rock. And if you live in Florida, you better learn who Jim Cantori is. Okay. This is the guy. He's the guy that goes and stands in hurricanes and takes the brunt of it on the Weather Channel. And he was standing in Clearwater, Florida. So my wife, God bless her, made a decision. She's like, you're going to Orlando. So she got me a hotel in Orlando. I drove out there. the storm turned, and then guess what? It decided it was still going to come through Orlando in the middle of the night. Now, I was at the top of a hotel, y'all, and it was a Category 1 when I was there. And I've never been through a hurricane. In a Category 1, we're talking 80-mile-an-hour winds, right? But in the middle of the state, I want to give people this perspective. I was in the middle of Florida, Central Florida, and we were at the top floor of the hotel, and I had my 1-year-old puppy Doberman, and the wind sounded like it was going to tear the top of that building off, and I was on the top of that building, right? And when I walked out the next morning after the wind subsided, because they started at about 8 and it lasted 12 hours, about 8 o'clock the next morning, things kind of really subsided. By 8:30, I was packing up to get out of there because I didn't know what my home was going to look like, right? And as I pulled out, there were cars with water up to their windshield in Orlando. Mm-hmm. So I want to give you this perspective that what Marcia is referring to is it's easy to step back and go, okay, why would people stay? But you look at these things and you go, you got to make a decision at some point. You're trying to make the best decision for you, your family, and your safety. And then you make a move and it could still be the wrong one. All right. Now, I was fortunate. Our house had very little damage and my car did not flood. But I mean, it was literally, I pulled out of the hotel and there was a car in Dunkin' Donuts. And I remember it was coming out of Dunkin' Donuts onto the main road and the water was up to the windshield. I'm like, what the heck is happening around here? All right. So like, I think that's such good perspective, Marcia, and it's such a great share. So thank you. Right. And we're going to share more resources like that. Jim Cantori. So for those of you taking notes at home, which you're good students, Jim Cantori. That's the first thing you need to know. Go ahead, Marcia.
That reminds me, my husband, the first time we were here for Irma, all my family kept calling and telling us to leave. They were very upset that we weren't. And so my husband always says that they become meteorologists whenever there's a storm here. Yeah. They think they know what we should do and stuff. But like Juan just said, it's very different when you're here and it's local. So what everyone else is seeing is national. And of course, they hype it up, I think. And so when you're here, you're making the decisions you need to make for your location. So I'm totally with that. One of the resources that I found that I thought was really good is ready.gov/hurricane. It gives you a lot of information as far as resources, information on where you'll get information from during the hurricane, what to do if you need to go to a shelter. So some of the things I took away from it is as far as getting information during a hurricane, we have different systems. One is the wireless emergency alerts, which allows federal, state, and local authorities to give us short messages. So I'm sure you guys have heard them before if you've been in any kind of storm. It's just it comes through your phone, it comes through the TV, and it's just a very quick,
similar noise to the Amber Alert, right, Marcia?
Yeah, the Amber Alert is under the emergency alert system. So that's different than the wireless emergency alerts. It's a different system. But that comes from let me see, state and local. So the emergency alert is state and local, and that does include things like the Amber Alert, imminent threats, and weather. And then we also have the National Weather Radio. So that's on, the radio as opposed to on our TV or our cell phones. And then FEMA has an app that you can go to, and it has real-time weather emergency announcements. You can use it to let your loved ones know you're okay. That's one way. There's a couple other ways that you can do that. One is through WhatsApp, and the other is through an app called Zello. And Zello's like, instead of a phone, it's like a walkie-talkie, but you get it through your phone. I know we used that one last time during Ian because we lost phone service for a little while. So it was a way that you could stay in touch with people without having internet or phone service. So those are some really good options. Another thing that I found that was very interesting was information on shelters. If you need to go to a shelter, you can text this number. It's 43362, And all you do is put in the word shelter and your zip code. And when you do that and send it to that number 43362, they'll tell you the mass shelter areas that are available in that zip code.
43362, and then what do you put in, Marcia?
The word shelter, and then your zip code.
We're going to text the word shelter. I'm putting this on the banner right now.
Okay.
Text the word shelter to 43362.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, that's another big decision families have to make. If you do stay in your area and it gets bad and you get scared, if you decide to go to a shelter, you have to remember that once you go into the shelter, they don't let you out. So if you go there and you don't like what's going on, you're not leaving. So I've had families that I know that have gone to them, and they did spend the night, but it's full of, it's like a camp out or whatever. It's full of other people, their dogs. Some people sleep, some people don't. You're all in like a gym type of area. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know before and never thought of it, but if you go there, you're not leaving until they say it's okay. So once you go in there, plan on staying. They're usually like in schools or churches, places that have, large amounts of space that people can stay. Mm-hmm. They do advise you to bring your own water and food because you don't know what they're going to have there. I don't know if it's donations or how they get that. And they also recommend you bring like soap and hand sanitizer, things like that. So you'll have it. So it's not to tell you not to go to a shelter. I'm just telling you that, be prepared when you go into that shelter. And that website I told you about that has the ready.gov/hurricane gives you information on shelters. Yeah. So another thing people do is shelter together. So if someone that is in an area that might flood, or maybe an elderly person or someone that's alone, a lot of times people welcome other people into their home to come and stay with them, which is an awesome way to help out. And then if you do stay at home, I always recommend, and they did too on the website, is number one, everyone in your family, including people that don't live with you, should know what your plan is. So if for some reason something happens or you can't get in touch with them, they have an idea of where you're at. Yeah. One suggestion that I read that I thought was a really good idea is to have a couple plans. So let's say the hurricane, takes a turn and it's coming towards us. Depending on where that's coming from, you should have two directions that you can go in. So you might go north and you might go east. You should have two different plans in case the first plan is undoable. Absolutely. So that was a really good thought, to have a couple plans, and also to let family members know, other than people that you're with, what the plan is. So they'll know where to look for you or how to get in touch with you, things like that. So those were great finds when I was looking into the hurricane evacuation or hurricane sheltering.
Yep. This is great. And for those of you just joining us, I know we've been going pretty heavy here for a minute. It looks like that Tampa Bay is going to be we're going to be spared again. And I say that because, man, we've really been very fortunate here in Tampa Bay. It was literally, I think, 1921 the last time that Tampa took a direct shot, or the Tampa Bay area, forgive me, a direct shot of a Cat 3 or higher. It's been a very long time, y'all. So we're grateful for that, but we're also, praying for our brothers and sisters to the north, in the bend here, Big Bend of Florida, and just wanted to share, some resources with everyone, because again, we have people local that are watching this channel. We have people that watch from all over the country who are considering relocating to the area. and other people who have second homes and vacation homes here and investments. So we just want to bring some information, local. We've shared where everybody is. Marcia's in Bradenton. For those of you watching, want to make sure we know, we kind of give you perspective. And I'll show you, I'm going to break open the map here, and I want to share some resources. Then I want to bounce back to Marcia, and then we're going to head over to Stacy. But Marcia's in Bradenton, which is to the south of the bay. And I'll pull that up on the map. Stacy's up in Dade City, which is, the northeast component of Tampa Bay area. And I'm right on the coast in the Indian Rocks Beach area. So I want to share that. But I also wanted to share this resource with you here. So what we'll do is we'll put all the links after this live is over inside of the description on our YouTube channel. So you can just click on these at any time. But for those of you who are watching that are taking notes, who are considering being a Floridian, or you're new Floridian in the area and trying to figure out who you need to kind of follow, I want to show you a couple of resources that you can check out really quick. First and foremost, I want to talk about this man here. His name is Dennis Phillips. And Dennis Phillips is a key meteorologist here in the Tampa Bay area. He's kind of the guy. Now, I know there's different weather guys. Everybody can pick their own. But Dennis does an excellent job of delivering the message. So you can just go check him out, Dennis Phillips. He's got his own weather page. He does an excellent job. He keeps you up to date on hurricanes. If we have red tide situations, Dennis is just a really good resource to have in the area. And then one of my favorite resources in the area is Mike's weather page here. Mike lives in Tampa Bay. I think he lives to the north up in like the Oldsmar area. I don't know him personally. His name is Mike Boylan, I believe. But Mike's weather page, follow him on TikTok, follow him on Instagram. He does live. He's out there storm chasing right now. Shout out to Mike. If you're not following him, give this man a subscription, or go subscribe to his YouTube channel. This guy keeps you up to date. He chases storms all over the country. He's awesome. He does a great job at filling you in on what's going on. You can go check out his live streams and his local things. Like I said, follow him on TikTok too. Another resource is, of course, the Weather Channel. This is a great resource to kind of come check out. As you can see, it's a Cat 2. As of right now, Dennis said literally less than a half hour ago that this storm is approximately 100 miles off the coast of Florida right now, and it looks like it's going to take a pretty big swing. He is I'm going to be mindful of this. This is not Juan saying this. I'm not a weatherman. He said it's highly unlikely that we're going to see an Ian or an Irma situation where this thing doglegs. Okay, currently. So they're basing this upon all the information they have. Again, I'm not a weatherman. I'm just sharing this with you. And then another local resource for anyone who is in the area here. Each one of our counties has this evacuation zone map. Okay, and I'm showing you mine. This is Pinellas County where I live. Tampa Bay is we're moving the map around, so forgive me. Tampa Bay is right here, y'all. This is Tampa Bay. Oh, give me the arrow. This is Tampa Bay. This is downtown Tampa. Right here, this is where the hospital is. That is downtown. And Hillsborough has its own map. Manatee has its own map, so you can kind of know where the flood zones are and where you need to react. And just showing you all of this. The red is obviously the most susceptible to a rise in tide, and we are still expecting to remember Ian, right? It pushed all this water up. There's still a very high risk in the greater Tampa Bay area of immense flooding, even though this storm is that far out because of tide. We're also in a new moon and a super moon, so they call it a king tide when that tide is going to be high. And when this storm rolls in, that's when it's important to know. So this is something to be mindful of. And I want to point out something here because I didn't recognize this at first either. Oh, excuse me. This is super sensitive. I didn't recognize this either. But you would think, looking at this county map, that closer to the Gulf of Mexico would be the most susceptible. But the way that Pinellas County is laid out, and this is St. Pete to the south and Clearwater to the north. Man, I'm so sorry, guys. This thing is like hypersensitive. It's actually more prone to flood near the bay, on the bay side. And again, same thing with Tampa. So just kind of keep that in perspective. Safety Harbor, Oldsmar, up in the crotch, so to speak, of the bay here, and then up in the Tarpon Springs, the Sponge Docks area, Palm Harbor, and then of course Caladesi and Honeymoon Islands are definitely susceptible to that as well. But as you get closer down by us, we're actually pretty fortunate, unless you live like right on this thing's very difficult to manage. Unless you live right on like the barrier islands there, as you come inland, it actually gets pretty high ground. So as you can see, I live off of Oakhurst Road here in Walsingham, right in this area. We're like 38 feet above sea level. So I was sharing that with you earlier, but these things matter. Okay. So I just wanted to share that with y'all and just give you a little bit of perspective. So Jim Cantori, the Weather Channel, Mike's weather page, Dennis Phillips, all of these are great, wonderful resources for you to take advantage of, get perspective and gain understanding. The Florida disaster, which I was sharing with you just 1 second ago, floridadisaster.org. This is wonderful. It has all the nitty gritty. It'll point you to every one of these maps, everything you need to know, state of emergencies, routes, everything is on here, right? This points to everything in the state. So it's a great resource for you to have. So forgive me for pulling us aside there a little bit, Marcia, but I just want to make sure that people can get pointed to the resources real quick. Okay.
No, that's great. The last one I have is just another resource, which is ready.gov/kit. And that gives you a great list of things you should have before the hurricane, not during, or, this is kind of late to be getting this information now. But like Juan said, I was going to talk about hurricanes just because it's hurricane season. I didn't realize we'd be talking about it during a hurricane or just hours before. But there's a great list, like water and food and things you would think of, I think. But some things that you wouldn't think of is like a manual can opener. So many cans now have the self opening or whatever, but in a situation like that, if you don't have food other than non-perishable things like that, and then you end up not having a can opener, it might be a little bit upsetting.
And a lot of those things can be purchased before there's even a hurricane, in the forecast.
Yeah, you just keep it.
Yeah, like you stock up on flashlights and batteries and candles and lighters. Those are things that I didn't think about until a hurricane was in the forecast, and then you can't find them anywhere.
Yeah. So it's good to just keep it all the time, and then, every year check it and restock or whatever, and just have it so that if it happens, you're not the one standing in line and not getting what you need.
Well, this is great. And right now we have the governor enacted the Florida disaster tax holiday. He reenacted it. So it's back live. So you're not paying taxes on things like generators up to a certain dollar amount. You can't buy a whole home generator system and get it completely tax-free, but you can buy one of the smaller units, the $1,000 units or below. I don't know all the details on it, but I'll put that in the link as well. Basically it's like, hey, we know this is happening, and I'm not trying to sell you on this, y'all. It's a nice thing to know that, like, okay, we got to go buy the things and they're not taxing us to death on it anyway. So that's cool. It kind of gives you a little, and it's an incentive. They do it. What I've been seeing is the governor sets that up ahead of time. They're trying to get you to get ready, right?
Yeah.
So that's a good focus.
And I think another thing I just thought of from looking at the picture is that, what are your kids going to do without Wi-Fi? That's right. You may want to stock up on some good board games.
Yeah.
Because they are lost without it.
Yep, absolutely. I love the comments too. You guys are great. Derek says Dennis Phillips is a great local resource. Absolutely. That's why I pointed out Dennis. He's amazing. I would strongly encourage you to do that. Donna S says, stay safe, everyone. You're in her thoughts. Love Texas. Shout out to Texas. Those are our people too. We appreciate y'all. And then Jeff said, I just moved to the area here. It's amazing how the state gets ready. You're not wrong, my man. I'll tell you what, the state knows how to get ready for a hurricane. There's no doubt about it. So thanks for y'all. Thanks for watching and contributing to the conversation. It is most welcome.
And I have to say, as usual, when there's something big happens or a disaster of some sort, it's so wonderful how everybody comes together and helps each other. And Juan, you were telling me about what happened with you and your son yesterday and the sandbag experience. And, people learn from things like this, and people come out and help each other. And that's the really nice thing that you see when a hurricane or anything big like this happens. So I think you should share what happened with your son yesterday.
Oh, that was it was one of those experiences. As a father and as a parent, you're always trying to like look at the learning moments, right? The learning opportunities, even in tough times. Those are usually the most valuable time to help people understand. And my son lives it. We're very fortunate, right? Like I'm blessed that he hasn't had to learn the hard lessons I had to learn as a child living a different life. But like, I also don't want him to lose sight of the fact of community. And it's so easy right now, y'all. Like, and I'm just sharing this my heart with you. The world has changed tremendously, both for good and for some things that I don't necessarily love. And one of the things that seems to be slipping away faster and faster is this sense of community. And it seems to be the only time that we are able to really tap into that is when things aren't great, right? Some kind of disaster or tragedy but hey, it's a good time to help people learn. So I took him yesterday to go fill up sandbags. One of the things, and I was going to pull this up, but I realized it was on my stories and it's already went away. The county parks here. So for those of you that don't know, flooding is a concern, right? As I just shared with y'all, all of the county parks and most of the beach communities allow for you to come down and get sandbags, right? Which is awesome because some people are in such low-lying areas that their house floods, it can flood at a decent range. So this is important. And we went down to the county park, which is Walsingham Park right by us. And we last year, it took me 4.5 hours to get sandbags. It was insane. It was very tough, but I was there right when it opened. I didn't know. We were lucky. We pulled up right as it opened. It took us an hour to get sand. But as we pull up, basically what happens, y'all, is they've got dump trucks showing up, dumping sand on the park grounds. When you get in a line, and then when you pull up to the check-in, they hand you, like 15 bags. And you got to fill them up. So you pull up to the sand. They it's a loading station. They pull you up. You're next to another neighbor. And what I love about this experience is like, this is one of those areas where the people with all the money and people with no money are all at the same spot doing the exact same thing. It is like the most like communal experience that it's real, right? Everybody has to do the work in order to try to save their property or help people, because it's not just us, right? Our neighbor, right, God bless her, is almost 90 years old. My son, I sent him over there yesterday as my wife and I were getting our house up. Go next door and help Miss Sally do what she needs to do. And this is something that you don't want it to be through things like this, but it's a blessing to be able to teach kids lessons. So he went over there and helped her put some things aside. And, ultimately I had to go help too. But we show up and get these sandbags. And of course, as we pull up, there's probably someone my age. And it looked like his mom or his grandma get out of the truck with him. And I'm like, right away, I'm like, she can't hold these bags, because someone's got to hold the bag open while the other person shovels it in, or you do it on your own, which I did last year, which is not fun. And then another elderly gentleman pulled up right behind us on the other side. So it's like, I'm looking around and I'm like, it took me about 10 seconds. I'm like, look, fill your bags. I'll put them in the back of your truck for the elderly gentleman. And then when she was over there trying to help him, because she got out of the car like authoritatively, and I was like, what in the world? I noticed it. I was like, that's weird. Like, and I saw her grab a bag, and I was like, Lincoln, stop, go help. Right. So he went and her grandson turns. He's like, I just had surgery, so she's trying to not let me do it. I'm like, oh my word. Right. So like Lincoln goes over there and he helps them. And this isn't I'm not doing this for attaboys or kudos, y'all. That's not the point of this. I'm sharing this with you because like, this is one of those moments, even though this isn't an awesome thing to have happen, it's great to see your son. And so he helped, we helped those guys fill up their sandbags, and we were done. This man's name was Greg. So shout out to you if you're watching, Greg. Mr. Greg, he calls you now. Shout out to Greg. We get done, and he goes, what's your son's name? And I was like, it's Lincoln. And he goes, Lincoln. He calls him over, and he goes, I want to shake your hand and thank you personally. He goes, and he stopped, and Lincoln, being 10, doing what he does. And he goes, will you look around? And we looked around, and he goes, everybody here is your dad's age or my age. There's nobody here your age. He goes, I just want to thank you. Right. There are people here who can't do everything on their own. And I just want to thank you. And it's one of those moments that it was like, as a dad, you're like, oh, my heart, like it's just crushed. Like, but he'll remember that, he'll remember that. And the fact that, he was able to serve the community, and we're not done, right? Like, this is going to come through. and we're going to have to help someone else, because it's not going to just be an unscathed event. We're still going to get tropical force winds. Things are still going to happen, and we're able. And that is one of the things that I am super proud of. With our state and our community, is this sense of like, we're going to wrap our arms around each other and get through this. And then when we're done, then we can go back to arguing and fighting each other. I'm kidding. It's not that bad, but like, thank you for asking about that. And shout out to my son. That is a moment that I won't ever forget. It was incredible.
I thought it was a really good example of for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Thanks for sharing it.
Well, I appreciate it. And I appreciate you ladies. I mean, it's just one of those things where like, we're here to serve. This is kind of cool, actually, like knowing that we can help bring some information. Again, we'll put all the resources down in the chat below. If you're watching, please connect with us, right? Let us know where you're watching from. If you have questions about this, please put it in there. This helps us better understand how to serve our community, right? If you're coming back and watching this, later, or if you're on the live stream with us right now, like you're our community. We appreciate you as well. So we're grateful for that. And we can get into some more of this stuff, like, batteries, flashlights, like Marcia said, hurricane shutters. Are you going to board up your house? If you're going to do that, you need an impact hammer drilled. Ask me how I know. I learned the hard way last year. Right. And those things aren't cheap, but you need them, and you need a specific type of fastener, right? You can't just use a regular screw, a drywall screw. They'll snap right off in these block homes because these houses are made of concrete. So you need a tap con. Like I've got a whole list of all the stuff that we bought and went through. And I'll tell you what, the boards went up super easy. Y'all can't see it, but this window right here is completely boarded up because we boarded up the house, not knowing how this was going to go. It's made some changes, but we're grateful to do that. Now, having said all that, Stacy's got some fun things to talk about. She talked about hurricane and gloom and doom. Listen, it's here. We got to deal with it. We're grateful to share the resources, but Stacy's got some cool stuff. And hey, if you are watching this, for anywhere and you have not subscribed to the channel, we'd be honored if you would subscribe. So with that being said, Stacy, talk to us about some fun things that we can do after this ignorant storm passes us. We have to yell at Idalia.
Yeah. Well, I'm here to help out those families who love going to the movies, but don't want to spend, a couple $100s to take your family. Because I'm a family of 5. So, going to the movies, I was always that mom that had that big purse that stuffed all the snacks and the juice boxes in there. Nope, I'm just getting popcorn. Don't need anything to drink, just popcorn. So, but anyways, there is a really nice movie theater in Zephyr Hills, which is, really close to Wesley Chapel in Dade City. It's like a small mom and pop theater. There's only like 10 theaters in there, but it's really nice. They just remodeled it. They have the the leather reclining seats. They have $5 Tuesdays. But I think their biggest savings is the concessions. Like you can actually go get candy and a popcorn and a drink and not spend $50 for your family. So that's one of our favorite movie theaters to go to. And some of them, like they have bigger theaters, like probably seats maybe, 50 plus people. And then they have really small movie theaters that maybe fit 25. So that's really cool. For a matinee, it's only $8. And kids in the evening is $8 and adults is $11. So,
and it is located off 301.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It looks like it's probably 15 to 20 minutes east of Epperson Lagoon for those of you out in that way.
Yep. It's really close.
Just a little perspective.
Yeah. It used to be, I don't know if you remember when back in the day when those smaller movie theaters always showed the movies that were the older movies, not the new releases.
Yeah.
That kind of remind me of that, but they have the new releases. So
we had the dollar show back in Allen Park when I lived in Michigan, and they closed it like a few years before we moved. But like those were kind of the same thing, right? Like that old vintage vibe, but really it was just because it was aging.
Yeah.
But they did a good job. So that's cool. I dig it.
Yep. But of course, you know, Wesley Chapel has a big movie theater, B&B theater, and then there's an AMC movie theater in New Tampa. So those are a lot larger, a little more expensive to go, but they also have, you know, like the memberships where you can pay a monthly fee and go to the movies as often as you want. So we've also done that before too. But just to save a little money, your big families. Also in Wesley Chapel, something fun to do is to go to the Grove and do the mini golf. I know we've talked about pop stroke before, and it's really for all ages, but this mini golf is more, I think, more for little younger kids, the more traditional.
Yeah, it is. And this is right by the big theater that Stacy was just talking about, the Grove. I'll pull it up here on the map. It's right next to Crate. So if you've watched any of our Wesley Chapel videos in the past, you've seen Crate, right? The 92 shipping containers that they have restaurants and shops, and the Bacon Boss is over there. If you don't remember that conversation, the Bacon Boss, don't forget that. For those of you who need to know, they have bacon. They got ice cream. There's a little brewery over there. Well, they serve beer. They have a stage. They do concerts. But right next to that is this mini golf course right here, which is really cool.
It looks really nice.
It is.
Yeah, and since it's so close to the Grove, you can kind of make a day of it, because you can buy like a day pass at the mini golf. So you can golf as often, you know, just not one game. You can keep coming back. It's $19.99 for the day. If you just want to play a game, it's $14 to $17, I think, per player.
Group
but that way you could go have some lunch at the Grove, come back, play another game. Be a nice day trip.
If you take a big group of 10, they only charge you $12.99, which is awesome. And you can rent the tiki huts over there. So that's pretty cool.
Yep. They have parties, and they have food over there. Like, you know, the traditional concession stuff like hamburgers, pizzas, all that fun, unhealthy stuff.
$250 for a birthday party. That's actually cheap.
Yeah. That's not bad.
Shout out to that, because that's not what we have been paying for birthday parties. Let me tell you, that's awesome.
What does that include? I'm just curious. Is it like, does it say how many people can come? And
18 holes of mini golf, 2.5 hours of rental, private tiki hut with 8 picnic tables. Well, quite a few if you got 8 tables.
Yeah.
$75 an hour. Party package includes up to 6 players, a dedicated party host, 1 kid's entree per guest, 2 soft drinks per pitcher, snow cones.
Oh, that includes food. That is really good.
So that's I mean, like I said, we definitely play more than that. Like, we've been going to Sky Zone. That's like the new thing with the kids. And let me tell you, that is not $249.
Yeah, that's fun.
This is awesome.
Yeah, really cool.
So then if you're feeling a little crazy and you want to try some new things, there is a place in Zephyr Hills called Skydive City. So if you've ever wanted to skydive, here is an opportunity for you.
Did I miss that one? I did.
You did miss that.
Forgive me, y'all. We got it. We got it right. We got it right. My bad. Skydive City.
So Skydive City's been around for 30 years.
And how many times have you done this?
0, and it will remain 0.
you have to on here recommended that our viewers and our audience and our tribe jump out of a perfectly good airplane without doing it yourself.
I am not adventurous like that. I'm sorry. I don't even like roller coasters. You will not catch me jumping out of a plane.
Marcia, have you jumped out of a perfectly good airplane?
No desire. I think it looks cool, but it's not something I'd ever want to do. I wish I was that brave, but I'm not.
Let's find out how much it costs.
Yeah, but it's a thing. I mean, they have stuff for beginners and for seasoned veterans. It's like $200 to $235.
Yep.
And then they have add-on packages and group packages. But they also host major skydiving events and festivals and competitions, and something different to do.
Yeah.
I find it interesting that if you go down 3,000 feet, they charge you roughly $30 less. I find that interesting. I have jumped out of a perfectly good airplane before. Me and my bride both have. And I've been cliff diving. I've been bungee jumping countless times, whitewater rafting, and jumped out of planes. And here's the irony of all of this. I am terrified of heights.
Did they have to push you out?
If I kind of felt that way, I'm not gonna lie. But the strange thing is there was I had a sense of peace about it because it was only going one of two ways. Does that make sense? Like, I don't like being on a roof because I don't want to be injured. It's not the height that I am afraid. Like, y'all see those videos online where people are like standing on like ridiculously high things like buildings or light towers, and they're actually showing you the camera view of it? Like, when I see that, I literally, my hands start sweating and I cannot watch it. I can't watch it. Right. But I literally jumped out of a plane. And it was a wonderful experience. I'm telling you right now, if you've never done this, it is an incredible experience. It is, what's the best way I can describe this? So when you, I can give you play-by-play. We had this 1977 Cessna, so it's as old as I am. And the door, which opens up, like the door doesn't open out. The door on this plane opened up, like it flaps up like this. And it was being held together by like, those little like pin locks where like you get in a bathroom, not like a good one like they have today that's like a big bar slider, but when you walk into an old stall and it's like the little tiny, you slide it over.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here and there's only one seat in the plane. It's the pilot, right? And then Kate is sitting, she's got her back up against the front dash of this plane. And then I'm sitting up against the back of the seat. And then both of the guys, like, cause we did tandem. So both of our jump guides are staring at us and I'm looking over this, and as we're climbing, this plane feels like it's working so hard to get up, right? It's like it's got a lawnmower for an engine, right? And it's just like slowly climbing, and this door is just like slapping back and forth and I'm like, oh, like, so of course I'm like I'm like, this can only go one of two ways. And so what happens is I go first, and he tells me to get up on my knees and turn around, and this guy like basically mounts me, right? Because he starts strapping himself to me. He's like, "You're gonna wish you bought me dinner afterwards." I was like, "No doubt," right? Like, we're getting very up close and personal. And then what they do, they open the way that this door opened this is like the whole thing just flashing back to me. Like, it's not like he lifted it up and opened the door. Like, as soon as he hit that pin, the door was like flapped right open, right? I'm like, oh God, and now I'm looking as this door is open. I'm looking. There's no walk the plank, none of that stuff. Like, there's a wheel that's a few feet away, and a tiny 10 by 10 piece of steel maybe welded to that thing. And he's like, "You're gonna put your foot out there," and I'm like, "No, I'm not." And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yes, you are." So he's like, literally, he goes, and then we're going to step on that. And then I'm going to tap you on the shoulder and you're going to let go. He's going to put your hands together. And when I tap you again, you're going to put your hands out like this. And I was like, okay, sounds good. And they give you a little training course on the ground and everything, right? But you don't adrenaline is like level 11 and followed by cortisol and terror. Like, somewhere in this cocktail, there's a level of all this going on.
Yeah, I was gonna say your mind would just totally go blank. Like, you wouldn't even think about doing that stuff.
Oh, it was crazy, Stacy. So like, we climb out on this, and I remember standing on this wing of this plane, going, "What am I doing here?" Right? And he taps me on the shoulder, and so we're off, right? And I just remember seeing the plane go away, and we're spinning over and over and over again. He taps me on my shoulder again. And I remember them telling me on the ground, when they tap me on the shoulder and we pop out, I'm going to be looking at the ground. And he taps me on the shoulder and I pop out, and there was no ground. And I'm like, I am not in the right direction. I don't know. And in my mind, I'm like, total terror, because I don't know how to fix this. Like, and thank God he was there. So the guy basically wrapped his arm around my arm here and pulled me in, and we flipped over. And now we're the other way. And you are hauling behind. And it is cold. And I remember my shirt is like creeping up, coming up, like, and it wouldn't go any further than the harness, right? But I could feel the cold air. And what happens when your mouth is wide open and cold air is being forced into it at a whatever 100-mile-an-hour, whatever we were doing, right? And I was like, oh, you should probably close your mouth, dummy. So like all these thoughts are going on, right? Like, so I finally closed my mouth. I'm like, oh, that's helpful. I can breathe. That's nice, right? And then he pulls the chute. And it wasn't hard. This is the thing in my mind. I was worried about that moment, right? Like the same fear I had when I bungee jumped, because you think that you're going to be jerked, but you can't really tell until you see the earth going the other way. And he pulls the chute, and I just remember the silence. It went from loud as all get out, right, to it was almost like being in what I imagine a soundproof room would be like, because there was no sound. Because there's nothing up there with you, right? And every once in a while, you would hear the flap of the parachute. And I was like, this is awesome, right? And he was controlling it. So you felt like, I have no idea what's happening up there. But like we could see, and we did this in Michigan on near the west side of the state, but we could see Lake Michigan, which was like 30 miles from where we were, right? And you could see the whole thing. It was just one of those unbelievable experiences. Forgive my tangent, y'all, but like if you have any inkling to go jump out of a plane, especially in Wesley Chapel, because you're going to be staring at the Gulf of Mexico, which is going to be pretty friggin' awesome in my mind. That's probably a really dope place to do it. So I think that that's an incredible share. And if you ask me would I do it again, the answer is 100%. But we will not do that until my children can feed themselves and make sure that they can put housing over their own right? Like all that stuff is the fun zone got just completely put in the garage until the kids can handle themselves. But after that, we've already decided we're going to be the parents that travel the country in an RV. Our kids will be like, where's mom and dad? Don't know. They could be in New River Gorge. They could be in Arizona. We're most likely jumping out of a plane. Kate and I will totally do that. So thanks for bringing that memory up. That's awesome.
Yeah, you won't catch me there or Marcia.
No.
So, but if you guys decide to do it, please take pictures and tell us about it, because I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah.
I like hearing the stories, but I have no interest in doing it.
She's like, I'm all set on that. We've got Belinda watching from Charlotte, North Carolina. We got two in Charlotte tonight. Shout out to Charlotte. Your sister just moved to Tampa in June. She's in Hillsborough County. Riverview. Riverview's a nice area. So thanks for watching, Belinda. We appreciate that. And Belinda also said, at least the skydiving story made me laugh. Well, I'm glad I could be your entertainment this evening. Thank you for watching, Belinda. We appreciate it. Awesome. What else you got, Stace?
Well, I have a safer choice. If you want to go up into the sky and not be so crazy, there's a big red balloon. You can do a hot air balloon ride, which is really cool in Wesley Chapel, where I used to live. I remember getting up early in the mornings and taking the kids to school and looking up, and there's just these beautiful hot air balloons going across the sky. It's so pretty. But I remember the first time I saw them, I was like, stop the car. Look at these hot air balloons. You don't see that in Indiana. But but it's $800 a couple for a 1 hour flight. And that's if you like a special flight. If it's just the two of you, you can do a group package where it'd be $200 a person, and the maximum amount of people is four for that flight. The launch location varies on the wind condition of the day of your flight. But the flight area is like northern Hillsborough County and southern Pasco County. So something a little more chill.
Yeah.
That is very
They are so beautiful.
Yeah.
The hot air balloons.
Mm-hmm. Big red balloon. That's a good share. I like that. You brought some fun stuff into the mix tonight, considering we're dealing with Idalia, which is ruining everybody's fun.
I didn't have to do as much work to prepare as you guys did, because when people get evacuated, they come my way.
Yeah, that's true. They do come your way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, lastly, I'll share this, y'all. So thanks again for checking in with us, and hopefully we were able to provide y'all some resources. Again, Mike's weather page, Dennis Phillips, the Weather Channel. These are all great resources to kind of, wrap your mind around thing. Disasterflorida.org. That's another great website. We'll put all of these in the description after the live wraps up. And just know this, right? Like, Florida, for those of you up to the north of us in the Big Bend area there, you're on our hearts. We're going to be praying for y'all. The one thing I will say is, like, this is one of the most rural areas this thing could go towards. So if we have to have it, at least it's in a place where it's not as dense as Pinellas County or Fort Myers. Again, Lord only knows, those people don't need any more hurricane traffic, or Tampa Bay, or, the East Coast of Miami, those things. So, there's some positive in that, but there are still people's lives who are going to be affected by this. So our hearts and prayers go out to you. Be mindful of that. If you guys have a heart for that, I'm sure there'll be contribution pages and things you can do in the future as this thing comes along. Maybe we'll get lucky and Mother Nature will decide that this thing's going to fizzle out and just be a typical Florida rainstorm. But I don't think that's likely at this point. It looks like Tampa's going to be pretty well spared. We're expecting some tropical force winds, according to Dennis Phillips and the weather guys. But, for the most part, we are definitely going to be spared. We are going to see some high tide. We are going to have some flooding in the area. So places like Gulfport, St. Pete, Tampa, South Tampa, these areas are definitely on the radar. Areas like Oldsmar, Safety Harbor, you got to be mindful of these areas. And then our friends up in Tarpon and Palm Harbor, these areas too. So just be mindful of that. And when we're talking about Tampa Bay and Pinellas County, it looks like that Manatee and Sarasota are going to feel little effects, but Manatee on the river is going to feel that, right? That's at the mouth of the bay. So it is something that they got to be mindful of as well. So just be praying for these families. Hopefully minimal to no damage would be incredible. If you guys have questions about this, right, like, you can reach out to us directly. If you follow the YouTube channel at all, you know that I always say all of our contact information is down below. That's real. It's a direct line to me. That 813 number is my line, right? So that will come directly to me. Also, there's a link to my calendar where you can schedule a time. Shout out to y'all that are brave enough to still, like I said, we literally have clients that are planning on flying in on Thursday. They're like, "Yep, we're coming unless the airport says no." So grateful for that. The airport is closed. Closed yesterday. It is closed tomorrow. They're expecting to be back open by Thursday. So that's for TPA, Tampa International, and PI, which is Clearwater St. Pete airports. SRQ is it still open? Marcia, do you know?
I don't know.
That's Sarasota. So we'll get you an update on that too. So grateful for the time we've spent together. Ladies, any last words of wisdom here, or, just anything you would like to share with the audience before we wrap up this evening?
I think just an important thing is to buy your some of those supplies, before a hurricane is even in the forecast. It really helps out a lot, because there is so many things you have to think about and do that's time sensitive. And the last thing you want to have to do is run all around the city trying to find flashlights and batteries and that kind of stuff. So
yep,
being prepared before you need to be prepared.
Candles. Oh, the one thing we didn't cover on that, I would like to talk to you before we close out with Marcia. Marcia mentioned water earlier, and I think it's an important note. They will shut the water off. That is why she said you got to have water, right? Like, it can be contaminated, right? So that is why they'll shut the water down. So I want to make sure we call out to the reason why, because Marcia made mention of that. She did such a great job with bringing you Marcia does the best at bringing you the resources that will get you the most information. So we're grateful to have her on the team. It's become the new joke that I'm always trying to compete with Marcia to get an app that will help the team the way that she helps you guys. So we're grateful for it, but I want to make sure you understand why, because they will shut the water off if there is, it's in danger of being contaminated. So that's why we prepare that way. But thank you, Stacy. I appreciate it. We're grateful for the attention that you pay to the audience and to our clients. So thank you very much. And Marcia, what about you? Any final words you'd like to share with the audience tonight?
Just stay safe and don't forget about your neighbors or people that don't have anyone. You know, there's a lot of people in the world that are by themselves, and I think they get forgotten sometimes. So I try to think of people that are in my neighborhood or that I know that might not have somebody calling and checking on them. So look out for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for pointing out the story with my son tonight. And Marcia just alluded to that. Like we're still very capable at this point in our life, right? So like if we don't have to run, why would we? Right? We can stay and we can help out in those opportunities. And it's funny, I came back and I told that story to Kate, and she smiled and she's like, that's good. I'll have all the boys from school out there next time. So my shout out to my wife who you want to talk about me. I'm like, here's an opportunity to teach them. She's like, here's an opportunity to put their butt to work. Right. She's like ready to take those boys out there with shovels and get them after it. So that is my wife. You don't know her. She loves to make sure that the children get educated.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I was thinking that when you're talking about like Boy Scouts or baseball teams or something, it'd be a great volunteer experience for them.
Absolutely. And we'll get into some more of this. You know, what we're going to do as a team is we're going to put together our hurricane prep guide for our clients and our relos. And I'll let you guys know when we're done with that, because again, you probably want to know what I personally have, right? Like what do we have? And I bought a kit the first year we were here because I was ignorant and I didn't want to here's what I know. I knew that I wouldn't be ready, and I knew that I would regret not doing the thing. So I just took the time to go down and buy things that I thought I wasn't even smart enough to go look at these lists that they have all the things, because there were things that we missed for sure, but it was nice to have. So last year when that did come, I didn't have to run around and try to fight everybody for batteries, right? I didn't have to run around and try to fight everybody for small flashlights. And, you know, we do have one FM radio in the house. I know nobody even has those things anymore. Right. And you might have an FM radio app on your phone. That's all good to the cell phone towers go down. Right. And then you're like, you don't have, and I know everybody's like, what's an FM radio? I know. Right. So it's one of those things that like it could be a game changer for you and really be helpful. So we're grateful. We're extremely blessed that it looks like that Tampa Bay. Oh, and I did have that one last year I wanted to show you. So on that note about Tampa, there's folklore regarding the Tampa Bay area, right? Ladies, you can probably speak to this a little bit, but I want to share this specifically. Shout out to my friend Dean Schaefer. Gene Schaefer, for those of you that don't know, Dean was my real estate agent when we moved to Florida. I didn't have a license when we moved down in the state of Florida. I couldn't buy or sell real estate. So Dean was the guy that helped us find our house. He lives a few blocks from me. But he put this post up today, and there's this folklore regarding the Tocobaga Indians here in the area. And it goes like this. Basically, that because this is sacred ground and these are Indian burial grounds, that they just will not allow for hurricanes to come to Tampa, right? And while I am not a member of the tribe and I can't speak to that specifically, here's what I'll say. We'll do the dance with them, man, because I'll tell you what, Tampa has been completely blessed for over 100 years now. We're praying that continues, and our hearts and prayers go out to the families who will be affected by this. So with that, we want to say good evening. God bless. Thanks for hanging with us, y'all. Have a wonderful day and go out and live that Tampa life. We'll see you in the next one.
Good night.
Good night.